right. Good morning, peoples. Your time in US. I'm still in Asia, so it is Easter evening here. We're 12 to 15 hours, depending on which coast you guys are on. So enjoying Asia and hope you're all doing well. Hope you have a blessed Easter. All right, let's jump in here. I won't be long on these. This will probably be one of my fastest videos um, for my estimates. All right, so Group B, let's go to Nvidia. The goat's no longer the goat. The goat is dead. I don't know who killed the goat, but understand the goat's dead. If there's any goat, it's Pulte, and the emerging goat is going to be GDXY. If you guys have been watching my other videos, gold and precious metals will rule the universe here over the next number of years. Crypto BTC has a chance as digital gold. I think the AI and a lot of that stuff with our current debt levels, I just don't see these index averages doing more than 1 or 2% a year on average. So that means if they have a 9% up, they might have an 11% down year. They could have another 9% up year, maybe a 10% down. So you're talking 20, 30% maybe in the S&P 500 over the next 8 years. If it continues in this debt cycle, massive inflationary where rates just get out of control again, as much as I'm hopeful that doesn't happen, I just don't see any way out. This bull has been a hell of a bull. It's run for a long period of time. So you guys know some people just come out and tell you what these paid or estimate what these paid, but I like to give you my 2 cents on the markets, how I see things. So I don't want to give up helping you that are in these high yields. I mean, I own a little GDXY. I much rather just play the miners and GDXU and JNUG and Nugget when they're running, right? I think we could pull back this next week a little bit, but gold's just going to continue up. The central banks are buying because they see what's happening. Fiat currencies around the world just aren't going to sustain themselves. And these debt levels just aren't going to let countries print money. You're going to see a backing, a partial backing, sort of a mini Bretton Woods or something going forward. So I'm starting to do a lot more videos on gold. If you want to understand that, I'll do a lot more with that. But having said that, I still care about what I started with in helping you guys, even though I'm not playing. I own some Pulte and I own some GDXY. There's not much else to own. Maybe a Babo, a few things, but not a lot. You know, those guys that go out and tell you, oh, buy Misty and it'll, you know, as much as I love BTC, it's not running now. I don't think it's going to run for a while. I'm hoping it has a big surge to 140,000 again and it helps people in Coney and Misty. But I think just looking at it, just like if you think Nvidia's the GOAT, you know, it's not. You know, they're former goats, right? All right. So let me get in here. You can see what I've done here, and I always do it this way. I show an actual is equal to my estimate. So when I come in here and they report, I'll show you what they are. So what's the current yield if Nvidia pays 64 cents? I could sit here and tell you why I came up with that, what it's based on, partial IV, whether they won or lost money on their synthetics and on their calls and puts. I look at that. Mainly, I look at this kind of stuff. And all you got to do is just look here. January 28th, right? What I do is I report um, the period of time that they were holding all these things right up till but since I'm doing this on the weekend, I'm using last Thursday, right? Good Friday was a holiday. So $20.68 is their day before declaration day. in January. And look at this just trend. So $20.68. I code it in red. 1988, 1768, 1411. So is that what you want to own? That says to me you want to own dips, right? So let's look at dips. Dips is 1275. Well, they dropped this month. But look at this, 1235 and 1271. So what do I have dips paying? 94 cents, my estimate, with Nvidia paying 64 cents. They may not pay the full 64 cents. We'll have to see. So it that to me means a lot. Now, I can go in like I've done in the past and analyze all of their synthetics and everything. And sometimes I take a look at that because they still produce all the intraday. I just don't report on it to you guys because if I don't own it and I don't think it's great, then why do I want to report it to you guys, right? It's just selling you. I know guys that hated crypto. They had websites and they said no crypto discussions, but they come on here in Yieldmax and they promote Misty and they promote Coney and they tell you how much they're making in them. It just doesn't match, you know. They're just that's what you call they're just following the herd or following what's popular or they're a fanboy or something. You know, I don't do that stuff. I just tell you as I see it. You know, when Pulte came out, I said there's something very special about Palantir as a company. They're very different than Nvidia. They use AI and they use all that stuff, but they're very, very different in that their software. Half their money comes from commercial, so the government is buying them like crazy. So if you got Army, Navy, Marines, and you want to know how many tanks you got, what's the best way to mobilize this many tanks and get them in this geographical part of the world? And how many people need to accompany them? How many soldiers to drive them? How many soldiers? How many other vehicles, etc. And so their large language models and all their AI for logistical stuff is just fabulous. We'll apply that to a hospital. You know, if you have a mass casualty or something, an explosion, and you need to treat all these people, what about all your hospital supplies? What about your staffing for ER and doctors and nurses and x ray and operating rooms and all that kind of stuff? There's just very little that matches what Palantir can do. So you're going to do way better owning Palantir. But if you want to own an income fund, own Pulte. Okay, you're just going to be better off. Even if I don't think the markets are going to do that great, I think Palantir is still going to do well. The government is half their revenue base, and the other half is you know, industries, and the industry side will grow. But they'll always have the government with these war cycles and all that. You know, the big countries aren't going to spend less. You think China, Russia, and the US and Israel are going to spend less money on armament? Even if they don't want to fight a war, they want to be strong so that they don't have to fight a war. So, all right, guys, I'm going to do this now and just rattle it all out. All right. So, 64 for Nvidia. FEPI, Facebook, Meta, 53. They paid 55 last time. Nvidia paid 78. So you got two of them going down, but not a lot. But over here, you want to see green. If you see green, look at GDXY. I've been telling you about GDXY. Now, it's not going to be your biggest payer. The problem with GDXY is you got a 41%. This has typically been 30, 28 for its IV. You just can't make that much money. So when I see gold running, I go out and I do a GDXU or a Nugget or a JNUG, right? JNUG is just a junior, if you will, but Nugget is a 2X and JDXU. I think I got the right one. There's a 3X bear and a 3X bull. Um, and those are fabulous for short periods of times and bursts. There was a 5 day sequence. Go on my website, Targeted Wealth Creation, and look at my 5 miners to buy. I told you what price would trigger a buy, and they were close to it. I did that on the weekend of after I think 4/5 or 4/6 of April. All those buys went off on Monday. Within 4 days, 5 days, the average was 22% gain in the five stocks I recommended. Well, GDX was almost the same, the index average. So you can make a lot of money in that, but just using it as an income fund only. But based on where I see GDX, the underlying going up, it's 51 or something. I see that at 100. I probably see that at 250 in 4 years. The miners haven't even really begun to run. But these miners are going to be printing money, people. They're just going to be printing money, something that AI companies had been doing. All right. So let's continue. 15 cents for JPM, sorry, for Murney. Now, Murney's hanging by its teeth, 2.5. I guess that reverse split and getting delisted is not as relevant as I thought it was. Here they were in January, 495, 379. And you know what? I love it when I see smart people analyze this kind of stuff and they focus on the yield. Guys, $5, $3, $3, $2.50. So in 4 months, actually 3 months, right? You just cut the value in half. Who wants to own that? I don't, right? So it's the Ulti argument. All these guys, Ulti's done the same thing. Everybody talks about how much it pays and how popular. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lift off. No, bankrupt, right? I mean, you can only go so far with this stuff, guys. You guys that are just buying the dips because you're just waiting for it all to run back up, I got news for you. It's not going to do that. It's going to get halfway back, which it's kind of done, and then it's going to sell off to new lower lows. So I'm going to be making some new videos on that stuff. I hope I don't depress you guys, but it just doesn't look that great. I mean, this 12-year bull run in general is pretty much over. There's always sectors that will do well, even in a bear market. Gold has been something that it's flocked to for quite a long time over the last 18 months. It wasn't the gold miners. The gold and silver miners barely moved compared to gold. They were the most undervalued they've ever been, but they've woke up over the last 30 or 45 days. They got to wake up a lot more. Even the retail person, the average person in retail, is not buying gold. Oh, I don't want to buy it at 33. It's probably going back to 1500. No, it's going to 5, 6,000. And people always said to me, you don't want to live in the world when gold's 5,000. Well, look at the world we live in right now. We got loonies on both sides. These things that are going on, it's a disgrace. I'm glad to be in Asia. It's much calmer and more sane people than the idiots I see in North America. It just, I don't know. I'm so glad I'm not in the workforce like I was. I mean, it just, the the lunacy, and if that's what the country's become, and full of criminals and illegal aliens and things that our grandfathers and great grandfathers would just turn over in their graves and never thought that any of this stuff would happen. So anyway, guys, I'm going to finish. You can read them all. I don't have much more commentary. $4.96 on Pulte. It could easily pay $6, $7. I don't think it will. I think safely 450 to 550. So I went a little below $5. What's the last two? 532, 593. Here's a $3 and a 3.5. But even though it's not up a lot, right? It was 69, 69.56, 69, and it's dropped. But guys, this thing was down below 50 not too long ago. So if you want to just set yourself up to buy Pulte when if it hits 45 again because the markets shove it down, then I think you'll do okay if you want to own an income. I'd rather see you in Palantir, but at least you get some income. Those of you that really need income, this is one income stock that you ought to be in. Okay. So who else has done well? Well, dips. Why? Because dips is an inverse, right? And by the way, these things don't sell very well. Go out and look at the share counts, assets under management of all 4 or 5 of the inverse funds. They're not popular. People don't like to buy them. They never have been the retail market. I mean, there are people that go out and buy puts on the indexes and things like that, but they generally don't like these inverse. You would think they would be very popular because they're performing. I mean, look at this. Where's all your green? You want to be where the green is. And that's GDXY and that's dips and a little bit of Pulte. And the issue with Pulte is they're just such a strong company and have such a great product. Even if the indexes and the S&Ps and the Nasdaqs aren't going to do particularly well, like I said, maybe they average a 2% gain over the next 8 years. Maybe they get up to 3 or 4. Are they going to be at 9 to 12 where they have been for the last 12 years? No, they're not. All right, guys. So, and those of you that think YMAX is safe and YMAG especially is not safe. You know, that's the mag stocks are just super overvalued. Warren Buffett, the smartest investor out there. Well, that guy, he sold out too early. He was out of the market about 18 months ago, mostly in all cash. Not all cash, but, for him, probably 75% cash, which is just billions and billions and billions. That guy didn't get rich and smart like that by taking a lot of risk. He doesn't need to. All right, guys. So that's what I got. 13 cents. Morrow, $1.41 is still respectable. I put the two biggest here, which is dips, right? GDXY, the yield, I got them at 86 cents. Now, they've never paid that high. I know the history of them, right? I think they paid a 75. This is the last high for what, 4 months? 60, 66. Yeah, but there were a couple payments. I think there was one back in August. They haven't done 80. So I got them at 86 cents, which is going to get people's attention. Again, the yield's not just off the charts, but they're climbing. They're at 1681. They came out at 1990. That looks pretty good if Nvidia came out at 20 and is at 14. And think of this, where's Nvidia been? It's been 30 something, 35, right? So for it to be 14, it's in the tank. And I'm not saying that these don't. Remember what you have in a bear market. Some of your biggest rallies, your most explosive rallies happen in the bear market bounce. So say 1 month the market goes down, 22% in a month. They're like, oh, we're in a bear market, right? Well, it comes roaring back 19%. And that 19% might be in a 5 or 6 day period, but overall that month it's back up 19%. It was down 22. And then what happens? Maybe it goes up another 15%, and then you have a 30% decline month. So when you start adding all the positive months and the negative months, you end up after 6, 9 months, whatever, you're down 50%. That's where we're probably, if I had to pick a number from the top to the bottom in the Nasdaq and the Mag, you're probably talking 40 to 50% retracement for a low. They're not going to stay down there, but that's brutal. You guys that are out there borrowing money and buying these Yieldmax and loading up, good luck. I notice when I go in some of the discords I belong to, 75% of the people are gone because they were all the ones that didn't know better. They're just listening. Oh, I got a HELOC loan and I can borrow 100,000 and look at Misty what it did over this period of time, right? You look in the rearview mirror and you project the future. Not always the same, guys. If it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. All right. I think that's enough here. I'll come back and I'll report on these on Wednesday of this week. I got a lot more to make on the precious metals and what I see. I've been trying. What I do here is I should have Morrow up here in the white. This is an inverse. I color code them all white, and then the oranges, yellow, orange, they're all the weekly payers. So you guys know most of that stuff. All right. Hey, have a wonderful Easter, peoples. And I'll talk to you later this week. Bye for now. Again, this is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Bye for now.